Hello, I'm ABX Toycat, and I hate to start with bad news, but when is the modding API coming out? The modding API was of course announced in 2018, and they showed us this amazing rendition of chess being played in Minecraft Bedrock using that modding/script API, which would allow you to alter the game in huge ways using JavaScript from outside the game. This was going to be a revolution for the modding community, but it never really went anywhere in the last few years, and that's why the sad nail in the coffin came this week when Minecraft announced they were removing the additional modding capabilities /script API experimental setting. It's technically not gone from the game yet, but they will be removing it in March of 2022, and no one's going to be making things for an experimental API that is going to be removed soon. And so this kind of caught a lot of people off guard. This is very sad, and it's hard to work out exactly what happened. However, Tanner Pearson, who used to be a Minecraft developer, kind of shed the tiniest bit of light on this. Since he's not working for Mojang, he can of course say what he wants, and he said he's really sad to see this die because he loved working on it and collaborating with the Minecraft community to see what features they wanted to see. Then he clarifies that it was one of the most challenging things he's ever worked on in game development, with lots of performance considerations and different considerations for platforms. And I think that's ultimately where this has gotta, be explained. Not only is there 3 sets of input devices for Minecraft, there's keyboard, there's controller, and then there's touch, but then on top of that, there's so many different platforms, all with their own weird quirks that this scripting API had to run on, and then also there's so many different sets of performance, and trying to make Minecraft run smoothly with all of those things in mind, I guess was just too big of a challenge that Minecraft has decided to dump. And this is fascinating because this is the Bedrock modding API I'm talking about, of course. However, Java used to have a modding API planned. They've been talking about it for years and years and years, ever since the game fully released, and then they eventually dumped that a few years ago as well. And so yeah, as far as making modding easier for Minecraft, it seems as though it's not something that's going too well. There's a lot of fun theories you can have about why this isn't going well for Minecraft, but I think the simplest one to explain is that yeah, Minecraft is very focused on making the game itself bigger and better, and even without the API, there's a huge modding scene on the Java edition of the game, and although it's not quite as big on the Bedrock version, there is still a lot of people who will be making add-ons that can do all sorts of weird things that you probably shouldn't want to do, like guns or the girlfriend mod or whatever else it is, but this is the way Minecraft goes. Speaking of the way Minecraft goes, Barrel OTL asks, what happened to the skulk block that looked like a mouth? And to answer your question, the skulk block that looks like a mouth is the Skulk Shrieker, and that is that the goal of that one is to shriek and to alert the warden of your presence when he comes nearby. And the answer to this is it does still exist in the Bedrock betas, however, it hasn't really been touched in the last few months. We have heard that just in the last week, King B Dogs has been working on the Skulk Catalyst. He's been working alongside Nembon MC and others to bring it to life. It's been really great to have someone help shape the design, keeping tech players in mind, and they hope to share more in the future. The Skulk Catalyst is of course the block that will convert any dead XP and mobs killed into the Skulk blocks itself, so you can kind of store XP. It's going to be a revolution for technical players. I think there's a fun side note here, because King B Dogs has explicitly said he's not going to fix the bug regarding the Piglin XP farms on Java, because there's an angry bug that allows you to farm experience and levels without having to last hit the mob like you're kind of meant to right now, and so they're confirming they're not fixing that bug until there is another way to passively farm XP, which is going to be the Skulk Catalyst, which I just think is really interesting that, like, wait, they're not fixing a bug because people like it too much, and so they're just going to replace the bug with a feature. Interesting Minecraft experiment. Also, he does ask if any Bedrock players are using a bug where the Withers and Evokers, when killed by natural sources, i.e. not the player, will still drop XP. And so I thought that was another interesting insight into the debate between, like, when is a bug not a bug? And sometimes bugs are considered bugs, but they're too important to get rid of, and sometimes bugs are so important that they turn them into fully fledged features. Very weird things, in my opinion. Also, to answer your original question, because I went a little bit off topic talking about the Skulk Catalyst, what happened to the Skulk block that looked like a mouth, the Skulk Shrieker? They haven't updated it in months, and in fact, the Skulk Shrieker you've seen every time I've said the word Skulk Shrieker has actually been an outdated model. In October 21st of 2021, i.e. 3 months ago, King B Dogs said, oh, and the Skulk Shrieker model is outdated, and we haven't seen an update to it since. So we're going to be seeing a new model of this. It might not look like a mouth after that, and then you'll be even more confused about what block you're thinking about. Speaking of things that you're talking about, Jojo Morgan says, question, why do humans only ovulate monthly, but chickens ovulate daily? If you don't know, most women ovulate monthly, and chickens ovulate every day. That's why they lay eggs every day. And although the easiest answer to any question like this is that a human is a different animal to a chicken, and so we have a very different cycle inside of us, I think the actual answer to this is that chickens expect to have multiple births in one batch, in one clutchery or whatever, whereas humans, we have one birth over the space of 9 months, and we don't really expect to reuse, like you can have twins, but it's a rare thing, and so that is why humans ovulate monthly and chickens do it daily. If you don't know, every single time a chicken lays an egg and it's unfertilized, which is the vast vast majority, including the ones humans eat, that's effectively the waste product of the ovulation, and so it's the equivalent of a human period. Now you know you're eating chicken periods every day. Speaking of things that you're eating, the next comment comes in from Dender Hair, who says, wait, the combat system will change again. And yes, obviously the combat system has undergone quite a few changes on the Java edition of the game. For Bedrock, it's been the exact same combat, more or less, since the game launched over 10 years ago now. And so the idea is not only to change combat for Bedrock, because it's very basic, you would say, but it's also to fix the gripes people have with the former changes on the Java edition. Obviously, 1.9, the new combat system, is still very controversial, and they want to have a combat system where people don't go, oh, I hate this is the worst, and they just go, I accept this is fine, this is how things are meant to be, that's okay with me. Because if you think about it, no one was mad about the concept of like, oh, I can't believe there are pillager towers, these ruin the natural environment, they should remove these right now. Or if there was a number of people saying that, it's a very minor number compared to obviously a much larger number of people who don't like, say, the new combat system or any other sorts of changes like that. They want to have fewer controversial changes, and it's interesting, I was thinking about just how much Minecraft cares about what their community thinks. I mean, take the example of the bug thing from earlier. Yeah, we're going back to when is a bug not a bug, because the fact that they care so much about what the community thinks that they literally will not patch a bug just to keep them happy. In fact, the entire basis of Java Redstone is just bugs that haven't been patched, and so yeah, the fact that they care so much about the community's opinion is kind of why it's hard to do certain features that ignite some controversy, and I wonder if this is like an ideal place to be. Do you think that Mojang should be in a space where they care so much about the community that they're willing to go through a lot of effort not to misstep? You know, is that like a really good thing they care about so much, or is it kind of a thing where caring about us so much is slowing down the development of certain features? You know, any other game, they'd just be like, you know what, here's the new combat, take it or leave it, and then if people were really mad about it, they might then fix it. But in the case of Mojang, they're fearful of the eventual retribution, and so they're being careful about that. Speaking of being careful about things, Brandon Plays 702 asked for a follow-up on my positive COVID result that I announced last Saturday, and he says, are you sure it's not a false positive, or are you feeling sick, so are you sure you're sick? And I wanted to respond to this because I just wanted to give an update to anyone who's curious or concerned about the COVID thing. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who's cared. I did a test solely for traveling last week, and it came back positive, and it's like, oh, that's scary. I don't know what to do about that. You know, this was just meant to be a test to enter Canada. It was meant to be a test to, like, confirm I had something. And so I assumed it was a false positive in the back of my head, even though that's quite unlikely. And so I did another one the next day, and it also came back positive. And even though every test I've done since then has come back negative, either, very unlikely, it's two false positives in a row, or I do have COVID, and I'm entirely asymptomatic. I've not had a single symptom over the last week. I coughed a little bit, like I coughed like 6 times over the last 2 days, and that's maybe like, you know, 4 or 5 times more than normal, but I'm not sick in the slightest as best I can tell, and I guess good news for me. It seems as though it's going to cause some real problems, that there is a chance that I'll keep testing positive for some amount of time, and that's a very bad thing. But right now, my plan is still to leave this weekend, but if you wanna follow the COVID roulette, like I don't have symptoms, I just need a negative test so I can leave the country, you can find that out by following me at IBXToyCat, where, by the way, these next set of questions come from, because Erho Sabanez says, what is the best way to implement new light sources, i.e. firefly lanterns, and which lights would you want to see in the game? Also, in the Caves and Cliffs map, when tasked with building a statue, I built 2 desert wells instead, and first of all, my man, that's what I'm talking about. Desert wells are the ultimate statue, but second of all, it's really interesting because the 1.19 update already has a new source of light, the frog light, and it's actually the highest light source value the game has. It's on par with lava and glowstone at light level 15, and the sea lantern in case you're curious, and I think that this is an interesting problem Minecraft has. They used to have a whole range of light sources with upsides, downsides, and different light levels, but the further we go into the game, the more light sources are just maxing out that light. I think that something interesting they could start to do with hard to get lights, like let's say that firefly lanterns are slightly harder to get than other sources, is maybe we could make them more luminescent, because as the glow squid and the glow item frame proved, you can have brightness in the sense of looking at it without it lighting up the area. It'd be cool if we could do that with some new items if they choose to do that. But yeah, I would love to see a new light block in 1.19. Firefly lanterns sound really cool. Do I think it's happening? I mean, do you think anything's happening? Speaking of things that are happening, Cat Beanie asks, as a gamer, what is your opinion on Xbox buying out Activision, and how do you think it will impact PlayStation users? And this is a really good question, right? Because Xbox just bought Activision Blizzard this last week, on top of having bought Bethesda a year ago, on top of owning Mojang. Microsoft owns so many gaming franchises now, and I think this is the inevitable end game of where consoles are going. If you look at Nintendo, for the past like 3 or 4 generations, they don't sell consoles because they make good consoles. As much as I love the GameCube, it's not a very good console objectively speaking. They sell consoles because they make games that are only available on those consoles. And I think the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 have kind of proven that, yeah, just being a gaming device isn't good enough to be a standout hit success, and so instead they're buying all these first-party studios so that Xbox can say, do you want to play insert game here? Only available on our platforms. You know, from 3 or 4 years down the line, we might see Call of Duty be an Xbox exclusive, or, you know, like, these sorts of things are going to start to happen, and I don't know if this is good for the consumer. It used to be that you could own a Nintendo, and then you could own an Xbox, a PlayStation, or a PC, and you'd be mostly fine, but I think we're moving more and more towards, if you want to play all the good games that are released, you need to have all of the consoles, which isn't very consumer friendly in my opinion. And it's also pretty bad news for anyone on the PC, because more and more studios are going to be bought up specifically to make games for these consoles, and so yeah, everyone spends more overall. Maybe it's worthwhile, because the big benefit, the really cool thing about first-party titles, as opposed to Call of Duties or, you know, like these multi-platform things, is they have an incentive to make your experience good, so you buy the console, as opposed to games right now where they want to make as much money as possible. They don't care about how, they don't care if you hate your Xbox at the end, and yeah, there's a lot of first-party Xbox titles that are pretty great with that. And also the bigger thing is Games Pass. Every game that comes out from an Xbox first-party studio is available for free if you have a monthly subscription, which is a dumb phrase, available for free if you have a monthly subscription, but still, to me, that's amazing value, the idea of being able to play all these new games for free, because even as someone who, like, yeah, sure, I play games for a living, and also I surely have the income I could buy new games, I still feel so bad about dropping £40 or $60 on a brand new game that I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy. It just seems wrong to me, and so I'm excited by the idea of not having to do that. Speaking of things I'm excited about not having to do, the Thathan says, when do you believe Bedrock will be considered better than Java by the Minecraft community? Great question, the Nathan. It's like Nathan with a TH for some reason. But I think the ultimate answer is that the Minecraft community as a whole is effectively a couple of small communities that like their respective game, and probably have some illogical reasons as to why. I mean, is Big Salmon really a big reason to play Minecraft Bedrock? Yes it is. But, you know, you get the point that, like, equivalents of that would be dumb. I think that Java will always be big on the YouTube scene, because that's kind of the game that is played by all these people, and it's the game that people who are off YouTube making age probably have a lot of experience with. I think that's always going to be true in some sense, but I think the reason that there's never going to truly be, like, one dominant version is because I remember when I was playing the Xbox 360 edition of Minecraft, and then the Xbox One edition came out. It was literally the same game, just with a further render distance, and with better performance, and also with larger worlds, but despite the fact that it was literally just better in every way, a lot of people still preferred the Xbox 360. Sometimes you prefer things even when they're objectively worse, and that is the reason why someone will eventually find you attractive. That's what I like to tell myself, at least. Speaking of things I like to tell myself, this last question comes in from Deadpool, who says, Toycat, questions for Q&A Saturday. Does the current climate with the YouTube algorithm encourage creators to set up additional streams of income in case YouTube strikes them, or is it done out of enjoyment for making content, and is there a reason in your opinion that most do? So the reason that YouTube has set up multiple streams of income, rather than just relying on that tiny ad that plays before the video, is because first of all, that doesn't pay very much. If you have millions upon millions of views, you can make a living just Google AdSense, but if you are someone who doesn't have that number, you need to work out additional source of revenue. That can be sponsors who pay you some amount of money to put that ad in the video. That's why you see sponsored spots being quite common here on YouTube. This video, by the way, is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. It's a game that you can play with your hands, I bet. Anyway, yeah, the reason that people say things like that is because, of course, making money from different ways is important, just not only to make the survival thing happen, but also it's just smart business as a whole. If you look at any major, you know, like a successful corporation, you'll see that they own a ton of different brands and a ton of different revenue sources, so that if one of them dries up, they'll still be a successful company. The best example of this is always given as Unilever. It's a Dutch company that owns, like, Ben & Jerry's is the famous example, but they also own all of these brands, some of which directly compete with each other, and that way they can guarantee that even if one brand does pretty poorly in 1 year, they're still going to be just fine, because all of the other ones will probably be okay. Unless people stop buying things altogether, they're going to still make money. Procter & Gamble is a small example of this that I looked into recently. They own Gillette and Pampers on one side of the business, while on the other side of the business, owning like Bounty and Febreze. That's right, Febreze is owned by the people who own Gillette, but then also they own Duracell, the battery company. And then also they make pet food with Iams and Pepto-Bismol. They make everything, is my point here, and that's the smart way to be in business, to be diversified, and so YouTubers will often diversify their incomes in the same way. If I am entirely committed to this one YouTube channel, the moment something bad happens with Minecraft Bedrock, or something bad happens with Minecraft Bedrock YouTube, or something bad happens with YouTube as a whole and ad rates go down, like with the adpocalypse, now all of a sudden I'm making a ton less money, and you know, if you live very close to your means, then you're going to be in a very bad situation like that. And so I've diversified a little bit by having a YouTube channel that's about something entirely unrelated to games. IBX2K, in case you're curious. We talk about geography and the world and stuff. But also, there's other things we can do right here. There is, of course, the channel membership system, so that instead of paying per video when you watch it, assuming YouTube recommends it to you, you can become a channel member, get a few perks for yourself, such as the green name, such as the access to member-only posts here on YouTube, and the member-only videos. I bathed in Iron Brew, and I was so disgusted with the video, I was like, people can't see this publicly, but it's behind a paywall, technically, if you want to see that on my house store. So, like, that's a smart way to make sure that we can, like, have some baseline of revenue. I think that every business has to do this to some extent, and, you know, YouTube, we like to pretend that it's just people hanging out, vibing, doing the talk, but there is a business to this. The business can have that hanging out, vibing, talking about how, you know, eggs are basically chicken periods. We can have all of those discussions about philosophy and business and Minecraft, and we can have all of those, but there is a business behind what makes me able to do this every day, as opposed to having to go somewhere else and work a job that would obviously take away time from me being able to do this. And so, yeah, that's the kind of long and short of it, is that YouTube is a business like anything else, and it's a very personable business, but there is still the need to be diversified, because bad things happen all the time. Have you guys heard about the bad thing that happened in 2019? Something to do with a beer brand, I heard. I don't know, it sounds pretty bad, but yeah, the fact that bad things are happening all the time, you need to be prepared for them, is why business diversification is good, and that is why the brand that owns your iced tea is also the brand that owns your deodorant, Axe apparently, is also the brand that makes like paper towels, and also is the brand that makes your laundry detergent, because humans are changing every single year in not just the way we think of ourselves and the way we conceive the world around us, but it's also changing how we buy things, it's changing how we interact with things, and so as a result, I hope you'll enjoy this video. If you're not subscribed, I hope you change that by hitting the subscribe button, and if you want to access a video of me bathing in Iron Brew, you don't want to, by the way, you can do so by becoming a member on the channel down below, and I hope that none of you decide to buy the membership based on that. I'll be disappointed in each and every one of you if you do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.